Hi, this is Valerie Leonard. I'm the founder of nonprofit Utopia. I want to welcome you to today's live stream. As you may or may not know, we are focusing on marketing this month. This is the marketing month for nonprofit Utopia community. All right, today we're going to talk about social media. And if you can just bear with me, I am going to share my screen. In the meantime, I'm going to ask you, if you're joining us wherever you are, please post your name, where you're from, and what your marketing challenges are. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please post those. And then, after the presentation, I will address each of the comments. All righty. Thank you again for joining us. And after the presentation, I will see you on the other side. Take care. Alrighty, so as I mentioned, we're talking about using social media to drive engagement. And when we talk about engagement on social media, we're not just talking about posting, we're talking about ways that you can communicate. There's two-way communication between you and your potential funders, basically your constituency, anyone who has an interest in your work. Again, we're not talking about necessarily posting, although you need to post in order to engage, but we're talking about ways that you can actually have conversations online and make sure that people have some affinity or some love for your brand. Alrighty, and before we do that, I want to give you a little bit of information about Nonprofit Utopia. We're the ideal community for emerging nonprofit leaders. And when I talk about emerging, that can be people who are just starting on their journey. It could be folks who are changing careers. It could be people who are in a position where they are likely to assume management authority and they need a little bit of support. All right, so we have created a safe environment in which our members can innovate and talk about issues that are of concern to them. And if you're interested in joining, shameless plug here, please go to nonprofitutopia.mn.co. We would love to have you. Alrighty, so our mission is to develop the next generation of ethical nonprofit leaders, and we provide ongoing professional development through live streams such as these, through coaching, through consulting, and through our online community. And the overarching goal of the community is to give our members the tools that they need to hit the ground running. All right. We want to make sure that they develop themselves as leaders, as well as the organizations and the communities in which they work. And our vision is to strengthen the global nonprofit sector by actually strengthening the leaders. We actually want to do 50,000 trainings or train 50,000 people between now and 2033, and you are part of that statistic. All right, in this case, it's not such a bad thing to be a statistic. I want to give you a little bit of information about myself. I am an expert in community and organizational development. I have been in this space for over 30 years in a number of capacities, running a nonprofit organization, making grants, being an engaged citizen. I am now the owner of Nonprofit Utopia. We just launched 2 years ago, and prior to that, I was doing consulting, still do consulting under the Nonprofit Utopia umbrella. We host these lives. We also host a podcast, and I'm on staff at UIC in nonprofit management, as well as Roosevelt University teaching social enterprise. So last week, if you were with us, we covered a lot. We talked about the relationship between a strategic plan, a business plan, and a marketing plan, as well as the communications plan, and how all of that needed to be in alignment in order to communicate successfully and consistently with our markets. We also talked about developing and implementing comprehensive marketing and communication strategies that were in alignment with those plans. We showed you how to reach key constituencies, showed you how to brand your organization's products and services and programs. We also showed you how to develop marketing and communications budgets, and finally, how to implement your plans. Alrighty, and this week we're drilling down to a little bit more specific level. We're going to show you how to develop an effective social media strategy that will support your organization's mission. We'll cover the social media landscape, which channels may be most appropriate for your organization and your strategies, how to develop a social media strategy, how to engage stakeholders, how to channel this energy to attract volunteers, stakeholders, and most importantly at this point, donors, right? So why social media? Social media represents an enormous opportunity for nonprofit organizations to connect with their supporters on several levels. Part of social's original appeal is the potential to reach a larger audience for a relatively low amount, if not free, right? You can advertise for relatively low cost, but generally speaking, it's free. 55% of the people who engage with causes via social media are inspired to take further action, like donating money. That's about 68% of the folks who responded to a survey by Sprout Social. And Sprout Social also found that 53% of the folks who responded to their survey, they started volunteering as a result of engagement on social media. 52% actually donated items, and 43% attended an event. All of this as a result of social media engagement. So we're going to talk about social media trends. Right now, according to the Digital Marketing Institute, one of the top trends is a need for, or actually people are engaging in tighter data security. And as a result of the Cambridge Analytica scandal back in 2018, Facebook, experienced a 66% drop in the confidence of their users and other consumers. And that was a poll taken by NBC. And soon after that, the changes brought about by the GDPR, and this is over in Europe in 2018, they made it necessary for paid social media marketing efforts to become increasingly transparent, and data security has become a top priority for most companies ever since. And this is around the world, even though we're citing an example in England. In 2020, the US is starting to follow suit, with California, the world's fifth largest economy, rolling out their own Privacy Act at the beginning of this year. The California Consumer Privacy Act is the most stringent privacy law in the United States, and it really could trigger a domino effect, across the country. And we're also finding that bigger is not necessarily better. When we are running our nonprofits, we typically think that it's best to engage as many people as possible and have a larger audience. But right now, there is a shift in thinking. Quality is more important than quantity, making sure you have deeper levels of engagement, maybe with a smaller audience initially, and then grow organically. And they're also following community building through meaningful conversations with smaller groups. And this is achieved by sharing insightful and valuable content and letting passionate followers take care of propagating it. So again, we're looking at a flight to quality. We're looking at organic growth versus, just having, a large number of followers, a large number of likes. And if you start off correctly, making sure that you lay the proper groundwork in your online community, it'll take care of itself. Empower the people who are engaging with you, and then they will engage with others. Another trend is live video taking over. Um, one of the biggest social media trends in 2020 will be the rise of the stories format. And according to TechCrunch, the growth of video stories in 2018 was 15 times as fast as conventional social media feeds. So if you're still just posting in text, I encourage you strongly to start including video in that mix. If you don't have a budget for video, just start where you are with your cell phone. You don't necessarily have to worry about high quality, even though I will say that people are starting to upgrade the quality. The most important thing is to get your message out there and engage with your supporters. Millennials and Generation Z are in love with the format, and video content provides excellent opportunities for marketers to engage. So for those of you who are trying, intentionally to reach our younger people, and when we're talking about Generation Zers, we're talking about people who were born as late as 2015. So this is, these are our very young people. Your video story should be interactive, using polls to gather insights from your audience, and brands can demonstrate certain authenticity by going live. So when we go live, we're always taking a risk of something going wrong, and what you see is what you get. You get a chance to see how we respond in stressful situations, whether or not we're able to recover from mistakes, how we handle pressure, and all that good stuff. So choosing to present a live video tells our followers that the brand is open, honest, and willing to present itself warts and all. And you really can develop a stronger connection. Your live videos offer a unique and powerful way to connect with your audience and deepen the relationship between your brand and followers. So especially right about now when we're getting ready for Giving Tuesday, videos are very, very critical. So they're good for peer fundraising, peer-to-peer fundraising, and that can happen any time of year. And your most prominent peer-to-peer fundraising is through your Giving Tuesday efforts. And they're also great to tell your story. They're great to engage with donors, great to get volunteers. Alrighty, another trend is that social commerce will go mainstream. So Generation Z spends 3 times as much time shopping on social media platforms compared to the average online consumer. So if you want to reach this generation, and again, these are younger people, they're the next generation after the millennials. So if you want to reach them in terms of having them join your services, if you want to reach them in terms of other engagement, maybe volunteer service, and, depending on if they're of age, if you want to engage them to actually donate, you want to go on social media with the video, right? So the vast majority of this online shopping is done on visual platforms like Instagram and Snapchat. Social media and e-commerce have finally come together, and 2020 may be a breakthrough year for social commerce. So research indicates that 42% of people between 18 and 34 claim to use social commerce regularly. That means they go online and they purchase through social media. All right, so this is an example that I got from Digital Marketing Institute. In fact, it's not so much an example, but it gives us an indication of internet users engaging in social commerce, and they have broken it down by demographic category. All right. So when we look at the gender breakout, we see that about 26% of men versus 36% of women have, I'm sorry, female, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. So we see that 26% of women in 2018 have engaged in social commerce, back in 2018, and then you look, it grew 10 points the following year. Compare that to men, in 2018, 18%, they indicated that they bought things through social commerce versus 22%. All right, so this gives you a real good indicator of, how you might consider targeting on social media for your social commerce needs. And then when we look at the age distribution, the folks who are most likely to purchase through social commerce are between 18 and 34 years old. So if you're trying to reach younger donors or younger volunteers, you might want to do it through social commerce, because we're showing that about a third of them in 2018 bought things on social commerce versus 42% in 2019. The next largest age group is the 35 to 54 age group, where 20% of the where 20% of the segment engaged in social commerce, and then and that was in 2018, and that grew by 12% in 2019. So you had in 2019 32% who were engaged in social commerce. And then, it's not surprising, the group that is less likely to use social commerce is those who are 55 and up. And there was no growth between 2018 and 2019. It stayed stagnant at 15%. But remember, the 55 plus, that also includes baby boomers. So even though it's a smaller number, it still represents a sizable population. And when I say smaller number, I'm talking about the smaller percentage. All right. Another trend that we're seeing is CEOs and executives on social media. According to a report by Domo and CEO.com, only about 39% of Fortune 500 CEOs were on social media back in 2014. Fast forward 6 years later, we seem to see, interesting growth, and those who are ignoring social media aren't leveraging it well. They're missing out on a competitive edge. CEOs who are accessible, demonstrate leadership, and are interested in engaging with their customers' feedback, whether it's good or negative. And they also go a long way towards building goodwill and improving the company's overall reputation. So at this point, if you're watching, I want you to post if your CEOs or program directors or chief operating officers or chief marketing officers are on social media. If they're on social media, please post in the chat and let us know. Another trend is that influencer marketing is going to keep growing. And when I talk about influencers, those are people that have some following on social media. So your influencers can be the big celebrities, or they could be people who have anywhere from 10,000 or more followers. So back in 2020, 59% of marketers plan to increase their influencer budget. All right, so at the beginning of the year. And this was a survey by Digital Marketing Institute. And they're looking also to leverage this reach by tapping into influencers, and given the fact that they can't necessarily, some nonprofits do have big enough budgets where they can work with large celebrities, or they may have a relationship with a large celebrity, but 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have that kind of budget. So we're finding that more nonprofits are working with influencers. That is, those people who have followers of anywhere from 10,000 to 100. And and those people can endorse their programs and their services. And then we're also looking at augmented reality. So there's a growth in augmented reality as I guess it's a direct result of the number of millennials and Generation Xers. So in 2019, we saw TikTok explode to 1.5 billion, that's billion with a B, downloads, making it shaking up any beliefs that the leading platforms were invincible. And this is from the Digital Marketing Institute. The younger generations prefer videos, interactive content, and augmented reality apps like Snapchat and TikTok rather than traditional social media of Facebook and text posts. So, again, if you're trying to reach the Generation Xers, a good place to reach them would be on TikTok and Snapchat. And just want to get a sense for what your practices are. So if your organization is on TikTok, if your organization is on I'm not Snapchat, Snapchat, or any of those other augmented reality platforms, now please share a post and let us know how you're using it. All right, so at this point, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat and I will get to them, right after the presentation. We're about halfway through our presentation. So now we're going to talk about how to leverage social media in your organization. So the first thing you do, as with any other process, you want to set social media goals, and those goals should be SMART goals. Remember, they should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. And that's going to be different for different organizations based on your capacity and based on your reach and based on whether or not you've been on social media or you're just starting. And whatever your goals are, they need to be in alignment with your organization's mission, strategy, goals, vision, objectives, and core values. And I want to share some examples of overall goals that you might set. All right, so if you want to increase donor retention, and when we talk about donor retention, we're talking about having donors. We want to increase the number of donors who stick with us, and they continue to give rather than just give one time and leave us. So if you want to increase donor retention, your number one priority on social media might be to foster engagement. Again, when we talk about engagement, we're not talking about just posting. We're talking about having, back and forth interaction. So you want to make sure that you can create posts that are engaging. So your goals might look something like this. Your goal might be to increase the number of current donors following us on social. And again, make sure that those are SMART goals. You want to give a deadline, right? And you also want to look at where you are now and get a sense for, whether or not you want to increase that by a certain percentage or by a certain number of followers. Another goal might be to increase engagement on social by 20%. And then another goal might be to increase website traffic driven by social by 15%. So the way you would look at engagement on social, it would be things like likes and shares. And when we look at how we can measure how much of our traffic comes from social, we can go to, the back end of our websites and indicate, and find out where the traffic is coming from. So you want to make sure that whatever amount of traffic is generated through Facebook, through Twitter, or any other social channel is increased by 20%. And then, here's some examples that you might have on an annual basis. So one could be increase your organization's social impressions by 15%. So when we talk about social impressions, we're talking about the number of people who actually see our stuff. They may not necessarily engage with it, but they do see it on their timelines. Um, Other goals could be, reaching new members, donors, and participants and volunteers, and educating these groups on what you do and why. And one of the ways you start doing that is to make sure that you're being seen. All right. So the second example is boosting social engagement by 20%. Again, engagement is liking, sharing, commenting, clicking on content. And you want to put a deadline on that. You want to keep your organization top of mind, build community, and encourage word of mouth mentions of your nonprofit. So you want to create content that will actually help you achieve the goal of engagement. And then three, you want to increase actions taken from social by 10%. So you want to increase newsletter subscriptions, drive event ticket sales, recruit volunteers, and increase donations. And you want to figure out a way to track how much of this activity has occurred as a direct relationship of people interacting with you on social media. And then we want to set targets and develop personas. So we're finding that it's not enough to develop your target market and segment your target market. You actually need to personify who your target is. All right. So these are basically representations of your ideal supporter. So rather than saying we're targeting, 18-year-olds, 18-year-old juvenile offenders who live in a certain community, you want to talk about some of the day-to-day issues that they may be having. So juvenile offenders who may come from troubled homes, who have experienced trauma, and as a result, they're engaging in risky behaviors and delinquent activity, that kind of thing. So you really, really want to drill down so you're talking to one person. It doesn't feel so overwhelming. You think of yourself as targeting this one person and figuring out what that person looks like, what that person likes, what that person does, what that person is trying to achieve in life, what that person's pains are, and all of that good stuff. And then you begin to create posts that will begin to address their lifestyles, that will begin to address their needs and wants and aspirations and pains, and ways that you can be a solution to all of that. The next thing you want to do is find out where they hang out on social media. So depending on who your target is, your social media targets might be different. Younger people, the Generation Xers, they may hang out on Snapchat, they may hang out on Instagram, whereas folks in my age range, I'm on the tail end of the baby boomers, we tend to hang out on Facebook. And I can tell you also that people who are in nonprofits, we tend to be late adapters, or we tend to not adopt. So late adopters, I'm sorry. We tend not to adopt technology quite as quickly as folks in the private sectors. And this has a lot to do with the fact that we're focusing on social change, the fact that we also don't have as deep pockets, so we tend to make do with the technology, so we're not able to keep up quite as much. But the thing is, we're going to have to find out where our target audiences hang out, and be where they are. People in philanthropy would probably tend to hang out on Facebook and Twitter, so you might want to follow them as well. So you want to get an idea of what your target demographics are and find out where they hang out online. And Sprout Social has an excellent article, and we don't have time to go into it, but they have an excellent article on demographics and the various social media channels. And that information can help you to really hone your messages and help you to really go to where the people are that you're trying to bring into the fold of your organization, either as a funder, as a consumer, potential board member. Another factor to consider is, what platforms lend themselves most naturally to the type of content that you want to share. So if you've got content that is heavy in text, obviously you might want to go somewhere like Facebook. If you are trying to, if you want to go to Twitter, your message may be the same, but it's going to have to be done in 150 characters or less. They may have increased it some. I'm not quite sure what the new limit is, but you're going to have to be able to condense that message and make it much more clear and much more succinct. If you work for an arts or music organization, think about where your audience might, view their video clips, and then you want to be there. One place could be YouTube. If you work for an animal rescue, look at how your target audience views and shares pictures of adorable animals on social. Instagram may be a good fit. And then you want to prioritize the platforms where you can devote time and energy to be most effective. And quite frankly, being on any one channel can be a full-time job in and of itself. And clearly, if you're trying to save the world, you don't have enough time unless you're a large organization and have hired a relatively large marketing and communication staff. But if you're like most leaders of nonprofit organizations, you don't have time or the energy to be on every channel. So you need to prioritize. Okay, and the next thing is to create a social content strategy. So Sprout Media, they took a survey and they found that the top reasons that people follow brands are for information on products and services. And for you as a nonprofit leader, that might be your programs and services, events, and campaigns. They also follow brands for entertainment and to stay up to date on news about the brand. And then if you want to position yourself as as an influencer, so to speak, you might consider making sure that you're also sharing news stories that impact your industry. All right, Sprout Social also looked at what kind of content consumers engage with and found a strong preference for content that's entertaining, inspirational, and educational. So I think it's really, really telling here. We tend to post things that we like. We tend to post things that promote our businesses, that promote our organizations, and all that good stuff. But what the data is telling us is that if we want to get engagement, we should probably have posts that entertain, posts that inspire, posts that teach, posts that tell a story, or provide some discount or sale. So for example, when you look at this, the results of the surveys, if we look at the teal color, the teal represents posts that consumers will like or comment on, and the yellow indicates posts that consumers will actually share. So 2/3 of people who engage with posts that entertain, they tend to do a like or comment. More than half, or 55%, actually share that content if it's entertaining. If it's inspirational, about 57% will like or comment, and 50% will share it. If you're providing a teachable moment, sharing, some learning, about 46% of the respondents indicated that they will like or comment on it, and about 38% will share. For this is especially telling for Giving Tuesday, because you're really about telling stories that will engage, potential donors and volunteers. About 38% of consumers will like or comment on posts that tell a story, and 37% will actually share that content. And then when we're in the business of selling items, and some of you have social enterprises as a part of what you do, about 37% of the people will like or comment on posts that deal with discounts or sales, and 38% will actually share. So I think that's very, very, very telling. And I would be really interested in hearing some of your experiences with the level of engagement of the posts that you're posting in your own social media. Let us know whether or not you're using posts that entertain, posts that inspire, posts that teach, posts that tell a story, or posts that have discounts or sales. And then you're wondering probably, what should I share? You're probably wondering this if you're just starting out. So you might want to start by looking at what's working and what's not working. Look at the post engagement, the ones or the types of posts that get the most engagement versus the types of posts that get the least engagement. And you want to do more posts that are like the ones that are getting, the likes and the shares and the comments, and maybe do less of the type that, people don't engage with. And I'm not saying that you should stop entirely, because some of the posts, while people are not necessarily engaging, they're important so you can reinforce your brand. All right. And people begin to associate your organization with the type of content, and it gives them an impression, or gives them a sense, for what's important to you, what you care about, what you really do well. All right. Let's see. Kiwi LaRue Miller. She's a nonprofit consultant and president of Nonprofit Marketing Guides. She suggests 2 questions to guide your content creation. What problems do people have in their own lives when trying to live out the values they share with your organization? And then the second one is, what tips or tools can you give them that make their lives easier as they try to be better environmentalists, a better animal lover, a better parent, etc. So this is going to also require that you start to not only share posts, but share content that people can use even beyond their time, with you on social media. So this might be a fact sheet, this might be a workbook. And a lot of this stuff can be free, and some of it you can even, charge a small fee, as part of your social enterprise. All right, you want to develop content strategies for social media that you can cycle through on a regular basis, such as volunteer spotlights, client stories, and how-tos. So, for example, the Toy Association is a nonprofit trade association with over 900 businesses that create toys and games for kids. Part of that nonprofit social media strategy involves Genius of Play, and this encourages parents to make playtime a part of their kids' daily lives. Genius of Play uses social media to share helpful content for parents and to spark dialogue about issues that their audience cares about. So at this point, I'm going to ask you to post what your experience has been, in terms of, how you engage your audience, what tactics have you used, and what has your experience been? Has it been a positive experience, and what has worked for you? And in those instances where the experience hasn't been quite as positive, what are some of the things you're doing to, go back to the drawing board? And then when we look at the types of content to share, obviously pictures and graphics and short videos and text, you're going to have a mix of those, and your organization should share a variety of posts across platforms. And when we talk about across platforms, we're talking about Instagram, we're talking about LinkedIn, we're talking about Facebook and Twitter and any other social media. Visual content can often reach emotional triggers in ways that words alone can't. So remember, we've all heard, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and that's very, very true. So, make sure you provide as much visual content as you can. And especially since we're in a mode of scanning, when you're scanning on social media, you're more likely to stop and glance at a bold visual or video versus something that's all text. So Sprout Social has created, they've shared a link to free tools for image creation. And some of those tools include Canva. Canva is a website where you can download nice images for free. And there are a number of other websites that you can go and get free images or free free visuals, so tools that will help you visualize data, etc. All right, so you want to capture snapshots and short videos on your phone, and that'll help you to share more powerful moments. So if you're out somewhere and you have a Kodak moment, so to speak, that you think, folks in your tribe would find interesting, stop what you're doing, take a picture and post it to social media for your organization. And then if you're wondering how often to post, and how do you manage all that, it might be helpful to develop a social media content calendar. And that's basically a calendar, and ideally it would be a daily calendar of what you're going to post, what theme is going to cover, where you're going to post it. And ideally you would start with some goal in mind, right? That will help you to achieve, programmatic goals, fundraising goals, etc. And your social marketing just becomes a part of that. So you want to make sure that whatever social media that you use and whatever messages and strategies you use are consistent with your overall mission, vision, core values, strategic plan, programs, and marketing strategy. All right, and then you can also use tools like Hootsuite to actually, develop several posts at one time and schedule them to, come out different days and times. So you might want to ask yourself, when's the best time to post? And for Facebook, the times where people are most likely to engage are Wednesdays between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock and Fridays between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. The light areas are the areas where there's the lowest engagement, and the darkest areas are the areas where there's the highest level of engagement. So the worst time to engage on a Monday is, Monday at midnight, between midnight and say 5 a.m. And actually Saturday at 11 p.m. is probably the absolute worst. So again, you look here to find out where people are most likely to be engaged on Facebook. The problem is between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock, especially if we're not dealing with COVID-19, most people are on their way to work. So at that point, it becomes really, really helpful to schedule your posts in advance. And another problem is if they're not on their way to work, they're in meetings at this time. So I say, you try to post when people are most likely to see it, but realistically, sometimes that's very, very difficult. You post when you can. And if you want to make sure people see posts at these peak times, then you schedule your posts to go at those times. And your first priority should be engagement. Again, it bears repeating. Engagement is not posting. Engagement is back and forth between you and your ideal target. So social media, is more than publishing. And Social Sprout found in a recent survey that 64% of people expect brands to connect with their audiences, and they rank social media as the number one place to do that. So if you are a nonprofit leader and you have not yet taken the leap into social media, remember it's more than posting. You got to make sure that you can connect with your potential donors. You can also make sure that you connect with potential consumers of your organization's products and services. So in our comment section, I would like for you to indicate to me whether or not you are not only posting on social media, but show me how you're engaging and what that looks like and how successful you have been. Alrighty, so this graphic lets you see All right, you guys, I do apologize. I got kicked off my my own software. I'm having a connectivity problem. So I am going to pick up where I left off. And if you could bear with me, I'm going to share my screen. That wasn't quite what I expected. I'm going to share my screen. All right, so this chart demonstrates what consumers and potential donors want from their brands. So think of your organization as a brand. So they're looking for your brands to be positive contributors to society. They're looking for your brands to connect with their consumers. They're looking for brands to use their power to help people, bring people together toward a common goal, raise the moral standard for others, unite people from different backgrounds, and act as leaders in our society. So it's not enough just to do the work, so to speak, in your organizations. And it's not just enough to post, but you need to make sure that you engage, and in your engaging, that you're conveying that you're a positive contributor to society and that you connect, etc., etc. So you want to empower your advocates and cross promote. So when we talk about empowering your advocates, people who are supporting you, people who are your stakeholders, make sure that you educate them as to what it is that you do and encourage them to also post. So if you're creating or ramping up your presence on a specific platform, you want to make it known to everybody, that they can connect to you there. All right. So you want to show them the value of following the stories, the tips and images they can expect to see, and then educate them about the best ways to show support. And then you want to also make sure that you cross promote your social media. So that means using multiple channels. Other ways that you can engage are to start a private group, and this could be a private Facebook group. It could be a private online community like we have here in nonprofit Utopia. And here's a quote from Beth Cantor. She says, invite them to join a private group or another mechanism of communication so that you can rock and roll. Everyone likes to be on a winning team and to cheer on the team. So you need that kind of connection. Make it easy. Provide sample posts for Facebook and sample tweets, etc. So, for example, the Chicago-based Anti-Cruelty Society has a private Facebook group for people who foster animals as well as for their volunteers. These groups create places for their audiences to connect and share their stories and share information and all of that good stuff. And that then creates a closer affinity to the organization. All right. So you also want to support your social media with email, phones, and other means of communication. You want to send a link to board members and ask them to like it, share it, comment, and tell people what they think. So a lot of this engagement that we see on channels is not always organic. Sometimes you have to start with the nudge by, letting people know on another channel, another channel, meaning email, through telephone, word of mouth, asking them, what to do. All right. And here's a snippet from an email from the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. When thanking supporters for signing up for their email newsletter, they include a call to action to change their social media profile pictures in order to further spread awareness. So here's an example. This is a screenshot of that email. It says, "Thank you for joining our movement to wage hope in the fight against pancreatic cancer. Wage hope is our relentless call to action as we work to double survival by 2020. You can start Wage Hope by now. I'm sorry, you can start to Wage Hope now by changing your social media profile pictures. Your actions are critical to raising our cause to new heights. Besides our monthly Pancreas Matters e-newsletter, you'll receive periodic messages from us that we hope will inspire you to take action and wage hope. You can change your subscription preferences at any time using the link at the bottom of any email you receive from us. Together, we can change the future for those battling this disease. We're grateful for your support and trust in us." So you can see that they're driving action from their email blast, and then they're driving you to their social media page and asking you to do a specific action, a very simple action of changing your profile picture, and that draws curiosity, and that helps them to leverage your network to engage others. And here's a sample post that they shared. Pancreatic cancer may cause only vague symptoms. If you're experiencing one or more of the following unexplained symptoms, the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network urges you to see your doctor. And this is actually a video. This is a screenshot of that video, just sharing this as an example. So this is engaging in a number of ways. They have a video. They are driving people. They're sharing an example of what a post could look like so that people begin to do their own posts. And then this just begins to go viral. So whatever you're doing on social media, you want to make sure that you measure and track those results. And you can track your social media efforts by going to Google Analytics, making sure that your social media is tracked there. And you could also go to the analytics page of your various social media and get a sense for when people are most likely to engage, and what types of posts they most engage with, and whether or not that has actually helped you to raise money, bring people into the fold of your organization as engaged stakeholders. All right, so at this point, I am going to close out. If you have any questions about this, you can email me at ValerieFLeonard@nonprofitutopia.com. But while we're here, you can post in the chat. And if there are any questions, if there are any comments, let me know. We encourage you also to join the Nonprofit Utopia community. Nonprofit Utopia community members, they can post any questions or comments in our forum. We also have additional resources that they can take advantage of. We also have office hours. And if our members can demonstrate that they've participated in the professional development as it relates to marketing, then they will get a certificate. All righty. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. All righty. Are there any questions? Are there any comments? Alrighty, so it looks like there are no questions, no comments. I will end this now. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time and hope to see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.